Let's talk about the wheel assembly. Again, it is a cylinder, essentially a flat cylinder. So revolve command works really great on this one too. It's going to find it much easier to do it than trying to build this step by step some other way. So we're going to try to model this cross section. You'll notice all the dimensions mostly referenced from the center line. So if we're going to create this, we're going to have to make sure that we have a center line to reference off of. So I'm going to create a sketch on the top plane here because we're kind of looking down on the top of the wheel. And so I'm going to start out with just a single line. And again, it doesn't really matter how long that line is. It's I'm just going to make it about 4 inches here because that's sort of what it came out to be. So this is just going to be my reference line. And I'm going to actually make this one a construction line because it's not really part of the model itself. It's the reference line through the middle of the axis here. Now you'll notice we don't really start drawing the cross section until a little gap here. Well, this little gap is actually this hole we see on the back picture of the wheel, and it has a diameter of 0.280. So if we're only going half the diameter here to move over, we're going over 0.140 before we start drawing. And what this will do, if you go ahead and put this little gap in there, when you revolve it, it'll actually give you the center hole of the wheel automatically. So I'm going to draw another line from the center over to here, and I'm going to make it 0.14. And I'm also going to zoom in. I'm going to make that one also a construction line here. So I'm going to click on it, and I'm going to right click, and I'm going to say construction. And that makes it, even though you can't tell it, that's a construction line too, because it's not really part of what we plan on building the model out of. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of these planes because they sort of get in the way here of what we're trying to see. So there we go. There's my center line. There's my offset of 0.14. Now you can start calculating the length of these lines of drawing the cross section. I would recommend you draw everything with square corners to start with, and then come back in and fillet the corners after you have created the square corners. So you notice from the center line all the way over here is 1 to the end of the rectangle section, and then it's 0.75 to this point here. And so if you do a little calculating, if it's 1 inch all the way over and we've already come over 0.14, then that means this line here has to be 0.86, right? So we're going to start where we left off on the little line for the radius. I'm going to come over and I'm going to type in 0.86, and that actually gives me the 1 inch. Now, if you add those two together, you're 1 inch over. I'm going to continue building this little cross section. So you'll notice over there, the thickness of the cross section is 0.25. And then if you come back, if you do the calculating over there, 1 inch minus 0.75 inches, you'll notice that the little comeback section here on this part of the wheel is also 0.25. And then there's a little inset here that goes halfway in on the wheel. Again, we're doing square corners to start. So if we go halfway in, that's 0.125, half of 250. And then if you do a little calculating, if you do the 75 minus the 25, you'll notice this distance here is actually 0.50. And then you come in back down where you did before, back out to the outside, 0.125. And then you're going to continue to finish your drawing here by connecting with the points you did before. And now you sort of have the enclosed square shape of this, right? But we need to add this circular end on it, and that is part of a circle. So it's a circle of this diameter. So we're simply going to add the circle, find the center point here, and then just make your circle the same width as what you've drawn. And that gives you that rounded end on it. We'll come back later and trim off what we don't need. Well, in fact, let's go ahead and trim it off now since my scissors are up. I'm going to trim off all the parts of the circle I don't need. And so now that leaves me this little shape. And the only thing left to do is now to put these little fillets in 4 different places. And it says, an arrow pointing to that fillet says a typical fillet is 0.0625. So I'm going to go to my fillet tool up here, and I'm going to click on this one, and I'm going to set the radius to 0.0. Let me double click on that. I'm going to make this 0.0625. And then I'm going to repeat that radius here and here and here. So once you set the radius the first time, it should sort of repeat itself every time you select it after that. And then I finish my sketch. So once everything clears out of the way here, you can see this shape has been modeled now accurately for the wheel cross section. And now all you're left to do is go to your isometric view, and let's move it over a little bit. And then we're just going to revolve. This time we're going to revolve. We're going to click on the shape we wish to revolve. Then we're going to click on the revolve axis, which is this one. And there you go. You have your wheel. And from that point, you can add the little cutouts using your circular pattern. And you can add the little attachment peg here using circles and extrusions.